I've used these headphones for music listening, video editing, and even gaming, so at $50 these should be a pretty easy recommendation. Well, let's talk about it a little bit further. Hey folks, I'm Matthew from Bloom Audio, and today we have the Kiwi Ears Division, a $50 dynamic driver headphone. This is Kiwi Ears' first attempt at an over-ear headphone, and it looks to deliver a balanced sound signature for studio professional use, DJs, and of course, audiophiles. Let's kick things off by going into build and design, and I think this is actually where most of my critique comes into play. The Division is rather ordinary in its presentation. You get an M50X lookalike here, and just something that doesn't really catch your eye in really any meaningful way. Starting off with the branding on the sides of the ear cups, I think it's just a little on the nose. I probably would have opted for something a little bit more minimalistic, just a different kind of logo treatment that just kind of complements the headphone a little bit better. As for comfort though, I do find these to rest on my head for hours on end with absolute no fatigue. The pad width and depth aren't too large or aren't too deep, so if you do have larger ears or you don't really like your ear touching the driver, I do think that is a possibility here. The headphones are able to fold in just a little bit, so you do have some flexibility in how you package these and how you can rest them on your neck if you're not in use with them, so that is a plus for the design here. As for the unboxing experience, well, it doesn't get more simple than this. You get the two cables included, both terminated in a single entry 3.5 point with 3.5 on the end with a 6.3 adapter included. In my follow-up email to Kiwi Ears on some of the feedback I have for them, I was pretty adamant on the fact that I didn't really like this design. I think they could have done something a little bit more here to kind of flesh this design out, to kind of show their creativity, because if you look at their IEMs, a lot of their faceplate offerings, a lot of the color options they have are pretty sweet, and I think they really could have done something here with Division. Obviously that $50 price point is pretty daunting in what you can do, but I do think Kiwi Ears could have put a little bit more attention to detail here in the build and design and overall look of this headphone. So what should you use to drive the Kiwi Ears Division? Literally anything you have in your collection will drive this headphone no problem. I use my Apple dongle. I went straight into my MacBook most times. Sometimes I use my DX180 for casual music listening, but I also used my JDS Labs Element 4 that I just got in for reasons we will go a little bit deeper into later on in the video. All of these were able to drive this headphone with absolutely no problem, so you definitely shouldn't have any problem in getting this one to comfortable listening volumes with just about anything. But if you do want to get the Cayenne Soul to really bring out the most of this headphone, you can totally do that. All right, with all that good stuff out of the way, we can finally jump into sound. We're going to start off with objective sound, and as always, you have the graph on your screen. I have it here on my phone. So, like I said in the beginning of the video, the Kiwi Ears Division is looking to deliver a balanced sound signature, and I'm not exactly too sure if this is what I would define as balanced, but it is a pretty good sound signature overall. Starting off in the bass, which I think is the key defining characteristic of this headphone, you get a lot of sub-bass rumble, some pretty good texture there. I think that is what's going to grab each and every listener when they first put this headphone on. The mid-bass here offers some nice slams, some really good impact and attack, and the 200 hertz region there definitely gives some more body and husk to vocals, which is nice, as with this amount of low end, you definitely want those to come through clear and clean. Now moving into the mids, you have that nice bass tuck to offer separation and pretty good layering for the rest of this sound signature, because with this amount of bass, you have to make sure everything comes through in a clean and transparent way. And I think for the most part, Division does a pretty good job at this. Obviously, we're going to nitpick some things a little bit later into the sound signature that shows the caveats of this tuning. Moving into the upper mids here, vocals have a pretty decent presentation. I do think they're a little muffled and veiled at times, but I do think they have some pretty nice separation from the rest of the mix, so they do come through even against that large bass response. And finishing up with the treble, I do think there is some decent brilliance and air here to the Division's treble response. I don't think it takes much risk here. It does roll off quite quick, so there isn't ever a point where this headphone gets harsh or sibilant to my ears, although you do have some S-tones coming through in a way that is decently sharp but never fatiguing. So to my ears, I do not consider this one very balanced. I do think there is a generous bass lift here, and it is a pretty bassy set. Now, as for the actual studio application of these headphones, I really can't comment too much on that, because I don't have much studio experience. However, I did seek the opinion of my colleague Marty, who has done audio engineering, mixing and mastering for a good majority of his life, and said, hey, Marty, do you think you could see yourself using these in the studio, and would you enjoy doing that? For the most part, he did enjoy the Division and saw a good amount of characteristics in its sound signature to trust them in studio use. If you're looking to see how these headphones fare in a live sound environment as well, make sure to check the link in the description. I have James, or the Audio Nomads review, linked down below, and he literally took these headphones with him when he was doing a documentary and using them for live sound. So yeah, go check out that review. So now going into my impressions on this headphone, the bass is definitely what's going to keep you coming back for more with this headphone. A track like At the Party by Kid Cudi, Pharrell Williams, and Travis Scott was just such an addictive listen with the amount of low end presented here. 808s have a ton of power behind them. The mid bass in general just has a lot of hit and impact. So this is just a really fun listen. If you do have a lot of rap and hip hop in your library, I definitely recommend Division here, as this one just offers a lot of bass power here and should have your library play back in a way that is really fun and addictive. Now moving into the mids, I feel like when I did change up the genre, went into more folk and acoustic, I feel like this is kind of where Division was at its worst. The plucks and pulls of an acoustic guitar and electric guitar really just didn't have those micro details that I've come to expect in a lot of Kiwi Ears' IEMs. Division just really kind of lacked here, and the general note weight and thickness of these guitar plucks were just a little bit too much and too exaggerated to my ear. I think when you pair that with the slightly muffled and veiled nature of the vocals, I think this is just where I was disappointed most in the Division sound signature. However, I feel like these are things I was willing to overlook the more and more time I spent with Division, coupled with the $50 price tag and just that bass response. I feel like for the most part, you are getting a pretty competent playback here in the mid-range until you really start to nitpick things. Moving into the treble, like I said, there isn't really much risk here. It just kind of contributes to the non-fatiguing nature of the Division. There's never really that sibilance or harshness that you get on a lot of other closed-back headphones that kind of try and compensate for the amount of detail presented. I think Division stays in its lane and just kind of does the bare minimum here in the treble, and I don't think that's really a bad thing. For the most part, you get pretty good separation here in the treble. You do have some nice detail coming through, but again, I don't think there's really much risk taken here, and for the most part, this one stays pretty tame throughout your listening. And finishing up with soundstage and imaging, I really wouldn't get your expectations too high here, but for a $50 closeback, I do think there are some nice nuances and general layering and separation here that go a long way in kind of completing the Division sound signature. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been using this a lot with my JDS Labs Element 4, and that is due to the EQ features that DAC amp presents. The general usability of this EQ, holy cow, dude, get me some water. What in the world? Bloom ASMR. Wow. The general usability of this EQ is just very easy, and it really made me want to dive a little bit deeper into Division sound signature and see how much value I could squeeze out of these headphones. I hear a lot from customers about EQ, and I do kind of understand where folks are coming from when they spend a large amount of money and say, well, it should just sound good out of the box. But for the most part, I'm a big fan of EQ. I think if you can squeeze the most amount of performance possible out of your gear, you should always do so, and at $50, I think you can really make Division sound great here. Now, I'll always be the first to admit when I don't know too much about a subject, and I feel like that is EQ. I really don't have a great mind for this stuff. I'm not someone like the GOAT Duck Bloke. I just play around and I have some fun, and I feel like Division is a prime candidate for EQ. I think for the most part, Division actually gives you a very good foundation here for EQ. You have that bass tuck, so you can kind of just go into the sub bass, bring that down a little bit if it's too bassy to your ears. If it's just fine, you can keep it as is, kind of go into that 4 to 6K region, kind of play with the presence and clarity of those vocals a little bit, and really just make Division sound great at $50. There is clearly a shortage of good, affordable audiophile closebacks, and that is why you're seeing the FT1 just explode in popularity. That's why I was quick to grab the Sennheiser 620S, and even though that headphone has its problems, I do think I'm willing to overlook it as it was just an affordable closeback that I generally enjoyed. I think that's kind of where Division meets me. Do I absolutely love this tuning? Not really, but I start to see the general versatility of this headphone the more and more I use it. I can plug it into any source. It can sound pretty good right out of the box and sound honestly really good with EQ. Couple that with its non-fatiguing ergonomics and just general durability, I think Division is a pretty solid headphone, and at 50 bucks, there's pretty low risk here. If you feel like you've been on the hunt for a pretty solid, affordable audiophile closeback, I think the Division offers a pretty good option and has a lot of versatility across the board to appease a lot of different listeners. Thank you so much for watching. You can't quite check out Division just yet at Bloom Audio, but we do offer Kiwi Ears' products, and we will have Division coming soon. I want to take a moment to shout out Nicole specifically from Kiwi Ears for sending this one to me. I had a great time with Division, and I do thank you for sending this one out. If you have a question about Division or any of Kiwi Ears' products, please feel free to hit us up at hello@bloomaudio.com, jump into a live chat, or simply just leave a comment down below. I look forward to connecting with you guys there, so don't hesitate to do that. Also, be sure to like and subscribe, as we'll be back soon with more high fidelity audio content.